right, we are live today. It's Sunday, April 28th, and today's show is going to be a little bit different. It's, of course, personal. I got a friend and colleague, Kim Poer. She's a end of life doula, and my family and I are going through the expectation of waiting on my mom to pass, and we'll get into that story here as I speak with Kim. So let's bring Kim on. And Kim, welcome to the show today.
Hey, Mark, thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for coming on and sharing this part of life. I just kind of want it to hopefully be out there. And um, there's an echo. I don't know if it's my voice is echoing back. I don't know if
It's probably me. I'm on mobile, everybody. So
yeah.
forgive.
Okay. Yes, it's probably I'm on speaker. Probably
Yes.
that's okay. That's what it is. But anyway, just felt led to. I reached out to Kim, and my mom went to the hospital back at the end of December. And long story short, ended up being pneumonia, and we were literally told she would not survive the hospital stay. And it got to the point to where she was surviving. It wasn't good, but we kind of had to, I guess, in essence, save her from the hospital, if that makes sense. She was being pumped full of so many drugs and all. So we got her out and brought her home with hospice, and she was home on oxygen, and we were told she would never be without oxygen. There was a time there in the hospital that we were preparing as a family for mom not to make it. Like I said, we were told she was not going to. So that was the first time in the past this year that we were preparing for mom to pass. And then she came home with hospice, and again told she would never be off of oxygen. And about 6 weeks ago, I guess, mom had decided that she didn't no longer wanted to have oxygen. She was tired and wanting to go home, and we respected those wishes. And so hospice ordered morphine, and we literally thought that night was going to be it based off what we were told. So we kind of braced ourselves, prepared, and here we are 6 weeks later, and she didn't pass. Well, last week her oxygen, plummeted to 35. Dad called; he was crying, and we thought that was it. So me and my wife ran out there, and we were sitting and talking with her and consoling her. I crawled in bed with her and laid there with her, and um, literally thought she was passing like right then. Um, and here we are a week and a half later, and she's still hanging in there. And um, she's on morphine, and it's just a very difficult, challenging experience to prepare mentally and emotionally 3 times, and then it still hasn't happened. So, Kim, just wanted to bring you on and share your experiences that you've had with different families and people over the years, and see if you can provide some guidance and advice.
Absolutely. And Mark, I just want to say, first of all, you're in my prayers. Um, it's really tough what you're going through. I don't understand your personal history to that degree, but I know how I felt when I went through it. So, just kind of briefly, both of my parents are gone. I lost my husband, Rob, in 2015 on May 1st. And since then, I kind of came over to this side of end of life care. Um, when Rob was first diagnosed, we went to the doctor and he said, "Oh, well, he has frontal temporal dementia, and come back and see me in 6 months."
Mm.
Okay. So I wasn't really sure what FTD was, or it could be any disease, literally. But so I had to go out and research. And one of the first things that I saw was that uh, dementia is fatal. You don't get out of it. You don't get
Yeah.
out of life. Uh, I mean, there's an ending. And I wasn't really prepared for that. And I've given it a lot of thought since then. And today, in 2024 today, people are not familiar with death. They are afraid of it. I think the statistics are like 87% of people's biggest fear is the death of a loved one. I believe that. People are unaware of the realities behind people getting older, getting sick, and passing on. A couple of 100 years ago, when Grandma got sick, she put on her prettiest nightgown. They set her up in bed, and the neighbors and the family came through and said their last respects because they understood the life and death cycle. We don't understand that anymore. So I was present when my father died, when my husband died, and in the line of work that I do now, I've been present for several of my clients passing. And it's not that I have decided to be friends with death, because that's not my end goal. My end goal is to know what is coming so that I can share with people and make their journey a little bit more thoughtful and a little bit more comfortable with the idea that mom or dad or your spouse or whomever has lived a good life and they are preparing to go home. They're tired of being here. They're tired of the pain and suffering of life, and they're just ready to let go.
What was it like being there for the first time? Who was the first person that passed before you? Was it your mom?
My mom passed. I was not there for her when she passed. My dad, I was there. We were all in the hospital room with him. I was sleeping on the floor. And the nurse came in and did her blood pressure checks and all of the vitals and everything. And she was like, imminent. It's imminent. So we all woke up and just kind of hung out until Dad passed. The next one was my husband. I was with him holding his hand when he passed. And he had, excuse me, suffered with dementia for several years at that point. And it was, on one hand, it was really, really hard. But on the other hand, it was like, I'm glad he's not suffering anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Because he had dealt with many, many things. He was no longer verbal. He was no longer mobile. He couldn't get up and walk. He was pretty much stuck in a wheelchair or in his bed with other people feeding him. He had lost all of his abilities. But one of the things that I wanted to ask you, Mark, and we've discussed this, that you had never actually been present when someone had passed.
No.
And I just want to throw this little analogy in there. How many jobs, employment opportunities, businesses have you worked over the years?
Quite a number.
Okay. Think back to that very first job you had. The first one that you had where you were released or got fired or left unexpectedly. Were you just a little bit terrified when you walked out that door and thought, oh my gosh, I'm not going to have a paycheck next week?
I think for my situation, it's been a lot of the being scared of starting a business, because I've been self-employed pretty much my whole life. So it's the aspect of like, oh my goodness, is this going to work?
Okay.
The doubts.
So as the years moved on and you changed and you grew and you got used to that, oh, it's a new business. Oh, here's another new business. Well, let's go this way. Well, maybe not. Let's go that way.
Mm-hmm.
Did it get a little easier for
Oh,
you?
yeah.
So I'm pretty sure that by now you probably like, oh, well, let's just start 2 new jobs this week and a new company next week. It'll work out. It's fine. So that's kind of how hospice nurses, end of life doulas, it's not that we want to be friends with death. It's not that we're comfortable with death. It's just we're not familiar with it anymore in today's life. You have to be up close and personal to be comfortable with it.
I think what's been the most challenging with this experience is my sister passed a couple years back. So that was the first time I've had an immediate family member pass. And then with mom, I think what's been challenging for me personally is obviously when you're growing up, you have those fears of losing a parent. A lot of people have lost a parent when they're young. But now that they've gotten so much older and you're seeing them suffer,
Mm-hmm.
it changes to where you almost welcome it.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time of welcoming it, it's a bizarre thing to be welcoming it. And then it's working through those emotions, and then particularly having 3 times this year preparing for it the best you could mentally, and then she rallies.
Right.
And so you start getting stiff-armed, and some anxiety start developing when the phone rings at an odd time. Her going through the signs of the dementia, having sundowners, having the drugs that are confusing her, and having to deal with those awkward conversations like I'm sure you had with your husband when he was suffering. You're having to adjust to that being who you know and love, but they're being different. So I think that's what's been the challenge, is the emotional toll of when is it going to be? Because we've already thought it was going to be several times. So you get punch drunk, I guess, or it
Right.
creates some fears and all. So um, just want it to be over.
Right. And that's something that people don't really talk about is
Yes.
feeling guilty
Mm-hmm.
that, wow, even though I know my mom's suffering or my husband's suffering, even though they're suffering, I want them to be okay, but I want them to be through with this illness.
Mm-hmm.
And there's guilt in there, and maybe even, I'm not sure of the right word, but there's a lot of guilt in that.
Well, I think that's why I just, one of the reasons just to come out here and put this out in public
Absolutely.
is maybe someone will stumble across this after I'm dead. I don't know. But it's like we're supposed to take our sufferings and help others that are
Yes.
going through things, and take our experiences and share it in hopes to touch someone's life, to help them realize, even if it's just a mindset of going, okay, wow, that's a normal feeling, because I do have some guilty feelings.
Oh, yeah.
I do have a lot of frustrating thoughts. It causes some grappling with me spiritually. Not everybody's a believer, but for those of us that are, that we try to find our comfort through Christ and the presence of the Holy Spirit. And you're sitting there watching these bizarre things happen, and you're watching your mother suffer, and you're watching your father sit there and stare at his wife of 71 years, waiting on her to pass, and not understanding what's going on with the decisions made, from the care she's receiving, from the morphine to wanting to put her on psych meds for whatever reason to calm her down. it seems cruel. And
Yes.
she called. Um, Dad called last week, and it was late. Uh, for them, it was late. It was like 10 o'clock, and I know they're usually getting in bed by then. And he said that him and the nurse could not get mom to go to bed. And so I go out there because again I'm on a flag lot behind him. So I go out there. And long story short, mom has been being given morphine in the mornings, a small dose, and then morphine at night. And they wanted to start administering some Ativan, which I'm personally, everybody's got their opinions. Everybody's entitled to have their opinions, but I know that those drugs can actually backfire.
Yes, they can.
They can cause people to get worse. The side effects are as long as your arm. So the last thing I wanted to take a chance on is mom having some of those side effects, which are making your thoughts and worse, your depression worse, suicidal ideation. It actually contributes to the things that she has. So um, I'm just opposed to that stuff. Um, but anyway, the nurse, they had shift change at 8. There was something going on to where the person staying the night was not a nurse that's licensed to administer drugs, right? So since the nurse that was on duty at shift change, they went ahead and gave her that dose of Ativan um, at 8. Well, when I got out there, mom was just kind of appeared to be semi comatose. She was sitting in the little chair there with her eyes closed. She was not paying attention. She wouldn't open her eyes, none of that stuff. And I'm realizing, and then found out that they had given her that. And I realized, well, she can't get up, Dad. She's under the influence.
Right.
Not only has she been taking morphine, but now they've mixed this in with it, which technically mixing that kind of drug with any kind of opium is not wise. So anyway, I carried her to bed. Just slid the chair over and picked her up and put her in bed.
Mm-hmm.
And she was just really, really bad. And then the other night, I called to say goodnight. And boy, did I call in the middle of a sundowner's moment. She was saying things didn't make sense. She was confused, not knowing what's wrong with her. Somebody needs to help her. It was bizarre.
Right.
And then you find yourself wanting to run from it because you don't know how to process it.
Right.
Where I know some people everybody has strengths and weaknesses, right? But it's just been such a roller coaster this year that you're just like, ask God, when does this end? When does the suffering stop? So, but again, like you had clearly stated, that comes with guilty feelings.
And lots of them.
But they're real feelings.
Mm-hmm.
So, I don't know. Being a member as you are in some of the different caregivers support groups, and you read so many stories of people that don't get along with their family. They have a lot of bitterness and animosities and those kinds of things, and they're just spiteful of life that they're even thrown into this role. So it's none of those, because I was raised with a very uh, devoted mom and dad. Their whole life was for us kids, and they've worked long and hard to be the best parents that they could be. So it's not those types of emotions. So I'm thankful that we, you know, had that foundation. But it's just so mentally
Draining.
challenging to experience all this, because no one wants to see anybody they love suffer. And I know you experienced that. And I'm sure it was different from husband to parent, right? That's a
Oh,
whole different category. You can't compare the two.
It's
But
not only physically draining, it's emotionally draining as well. You just have nothing left at the end of the day. You're just exhausted and tired.
yeah. And I think it's it adds to, you're trying to work, and being in the industry on top of it's weird
Mm-hmm.
because you're kind of exposed to all the different things that are going on in people's lives. Just, where you're trying to help a family navigate the process of placing them into assisted living, memory care, in-home care, hospice,
Writing their
all the,
obituary for them.
yeah, all that stuff. So, with your experience, Kim, did you see a lot of that bug trying to get you?
There's a lot trying to get me.
It ain't one of those murder hornets, is it?
Oh,
You got him.
he went away.
Did you?
Oh my
Of
goodness.
all things, right? A wasp coming in and attacking you. You stayed calm. My wife would have had a fit. She would have went screaming and running out the window, out the door.
Oh no. But if he comes back, I'm rolling the windows up.
Yeah. But with your experiences with just different people, and being around different family dynamics and all, what kind of advice do you have, just hearing the things I've shared, with, dealing with not only with it being my mother, but just, having your sisters and your father, and my wife always being supportive of, how do you navigate that day in, day out waiting game, I guess you would say, waiting for it to happen.
Right. So, you want to be as pre-prepared as you possibly can. You want to have all your I's dotted and all your T's crossed. I sent you that little short 12-step getting your affairs in order. That's what I said. And there's a lot of really good information in that. And if somebody has a loved one that has just been diagnosed, reach out to me. I'll send it to you in an email, or else I will direct you to my LinkedIn page where it is. I wrote this probably about 3 years ago, I think. 2021? Yeah, about 3 years ago. And since then, I am a master procrastinator, by the way. I have been working on a document, and if you saw my social media post last night, I did an extended, exhaustive document. It's 92 pages, and that's before.
Wow.
And it is basically getting your affairs in order and things that you need to do to prepare for that end of life prognosis. So I'm just going to touch on a couple of things. Educate yourself on your illness, keeping your age in mind. So somebody with, did I lose you?
You're still here, but your camera went blank.
Okay. So I'll try and figure that out. Educate yourself on your illness. It's something that you need to find the ins and outs of, the yes and no's of.
You're cutting out.
Going again. So that you can be prepared.
You got a bad signal going on. We're having some technical difficulties. Kim has left the building. She's still in here, but There she's coming back. There you are. You hear me okay? Can you hear us, Kim?
I'm back, Mark. Can you hear me?
Yeah, you're here. Can you hear me okay? Can you hear me, Kim? Technology's awesome. She's frozen. All right. So obviously, Kim is having some technical difficulties here. That's part of life in 2024. Sometimes it works. See if this. Can you hear me okay? She don't know we can see her. Well, one more time. Can you hear us?
I can.
There we are. Okay, I've been
Sorry about
ad-libbing.
that.
That's all right. We're watching you trying to figure it out. But anyway, you were talking about that sheet you had.
Yeah, just a couple of things. You've already got a care team in place. That's great. And I'm assuming that you have your wills and advanced directives and everything taken care of as well.
Yeah.
One of the things that I always suggest is, do you have the end details figured out, the clothes picked out for when your mom passes? Do you
Yeah, all that's done.
music and everything?
Casket, gravesite, all that's.
Those are really, really important, because on the day that your mom actually passes, if you're there with her, just sit down and do the smallest, littlest thing possible. Take time. You don't need to jump up and grab the phone and start calling people and notifying people. Just sit still and relax for 5 minutes or 10 minutes or however long you want to.
Mm-hmm.
Take your time and just be there for your mom, be there for you, for your dad. Because once everything starts rolling, once you make that first phone call, then it's just a steamroller. It's a pressure cooker, and you have 5 million things that you need to get done, and you need them all done now. So that's the biggest thing, is to simply take your time.
Yeah.
Don't be in any rush.
I am I always think about stuff like this obviously, like I stated earlier, when you get to a certain age, like, mom's 92, dad's 93. I know some people can live to be late 90s, even 100, but you're in your final stretch, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I think what's been mind-blowing is to see how strong she is, meaning she shouldn't have survived what happened to her in the hospital.
Right.
And she did. She wasn't supposed to survive coming off oxygen.
That she did.
And she did. And like I had mentioned, having 3 events this year, that this is it. And then, like, I have an uncle that passed away, and he was, I think he's in his late 60s, early 70s, strong as a horse,
Mm-hmm.
seemed to be in great health. and he passes away when he's, he was out working in plowing a field or whatever, and they found him passed sitting under a tree. And how people can seemingly be healthy and pass early, and then someone like mom that's um, defies the odds, and it's I don't mean any of this out of disrespect. It's just you're going, wow, because she is suffering.
Right.
She's ready to go. She wants to pass. And so that is a weird experience
Right.
to witness.
So, in this is kind of a different segue. Is there anything that she had wanted to accomplish? Is there anybody that she needs to make up with? Anybody that she needs to talk to? Some unfinished business that she may have?
We've touched on those things, and we actually thought. I mean, just to give you a behind the scenes personal thing, was I fell ill at the first of the year in January from, I guess, being at the hospital so much,
Right.
and I got super sick, and so I wasn't able to be around anybody for like 3 weeks, and of course she had come home after that. So when no, I'm sorry, she hadn't come home yet, and this is when we thought she was passing at the hospital. And one of my sisters like, I think she's waiting on seeing you, Mark. You hear those stories, right?
Right.
And so, but it wasn't me, so we checked me off the list. So I don't know if there's some things like you had mentioned that there's some unfinished or whatever. But she's, we've all have said our, I guess, goodbyes and assured her that everybody's gonna be okay and all. But she's hanging in there, So we're really waiting on any day now, but who knows?
Right.
I think that's kind of part.
She's just being a little stubborn.
Yeah, she is. That she's been good at her whole life. Being stubborn. But Kim, I appreciate you coming on here and taking the time just to share some moments together. And I guess what I would just like to share for anybody that maybe has already lost a loved one and they have some guilty thoughts or whatever, or maybe fearing facing these days, or maybe going through it themselves right now, it's okay to have those thoughts, those things that make you feel guilty, those parts of ourselves we don't like to see, and we don't realize they're there until they show up because we're facing something that we haven't experienced. And I kind of want to share this too. I've had friends that have lost their parents at early ages, and I have no clue what that's like, obviously. But I have these weird thoughts of like, what is the easiest or the hardest? Because they also didn't experience watching their parents get really old and feeble and frail and, suffer from the effects of getting older, right?
Right.
It's not an easy experience either. And it makes you have sobering realities of crap, man. If God keeps giving me the days, I'm facing that too, right?
Right.
But it's interesting. I have moments to where I don't know how to think about it. And for us to be guaranteed, we're guaranteed that when we are born, we're going to die, right? I know that's cliche, but death is such a part of life that why do we have such a hard time with it? Because it's like I have moments of I just want it to be over. I just wish I could just like God, just let it be over. And I don't have to even go through the steps of it. You could just wake up and it's something that happened and it's done and it's over with, and you don't have to wrestle with it, I guess, if that makes sense. because we're all tired of seeing her suffering.
Yeah, it is.
And just want her to be at peace. But is there anything else you'd like to add before we wrap it up here?
I don't have any great words of wisdom. I've always just kind of slugged through the trenches to get where I need to be.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, it sounds like that's where you're at right now. It's just
Yeah.
kind of just walking through it as
Yeah.
best you can with all the grace and dignity that you can muster.
Yeah. Well, Kim, thanks a bunch for coming on and letting me talk openly with you, and just keep us in your prayers one day at a time, right?
Absolutely. And I'm just going to throw a real quick Bible quote on you just because I can. Isaiah 43:1, fear not, for I have redeemed you. I have called you by name. You are mine.
Thank you.
Yep.
Well, Kim, I know you've had a 24-hour shift with one of your clients.
Oh, yeah.
And I know you're ready to get home and unwind. So even more so, thank you for taking the time to jump on here with me. So with that said, I just want to encourage anybody that's going through some difficult times to where we have to share our stuff to the world. And if it can help one person, then it's all worthwhile. So
it's worth it.
LaTanya, thanks for jumping on. That's a whole nother story with,
we had a watcher.
Yeah, LaTanya. But anyway, thanks again, Kim, and I wish you a good rest of your day and the rest of your Sunday, and get ready for the week coming up. And so until the next show, we will check everybody later.
Okay.
Have a good day. Bye-bye.
You too.